This was a spectacular flameout where the Knicks were just given the business. They had nothing. They had no answers, not nearly enough hustle, not nearly enough toughness. I mean, the fact that Clint Capella was right. Fake tough guys sent packing. If you didn't know the seeds, you would think this was a 1-8 matchup, and everybody has to wear it. But for as bad as the series was, it's really hard for me to be down on the Knicks today because I can't get this one question out of my head, and it's just, what's next? Okay, now what? Amazing regular season, humbling postseason. Now what? So we can dissect the series. We can go through the forensics of that crime scene over and over again. Feel like mayor of Easttown. I'm sure we will. But this team overachieved in the regular season, and the playoffs showed that this team, the one we watched, the one we appreciated, the one that resurrected the Garden, all of that, this team was fun, but this team wasn't the answer. So to me, it's now up to the front office. What are the moves? Because this ain't it. You know, the pressure now moves to Leon Rose, to Worldwide West, to Tibbs, to the front office to come up with the game plan. What's it going to be? Because honestly, the free agent class isn't all that inspiring right now, so it's not going to be just as easy as throwing money at all NBA players. They've got draft picks for a big trade. They have cap space. They have flexibility. They have opportunity. And I'm more excited about the future than I am disappointed by their flameout. Call me crazy. But let's be honest, the Knicks need to be upgraded at almost every position. And aside from Randle, I mean, how many players can you say are absolutely a lock to be on this roster next year? Moose, what's next? That's what I want to know. As disappointed as I'm sure fans are today, and I get it, and let's talk about it. But I just want to know what's next.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll get to that. I mean, what's next for this Knicks team and exactly where they're going to go from here, and what they had to add to this team. I think it's depressing and disappointing as a Knicks fan, the way that they went down, how easily they went down in this series. Not surprised. I said it yesterday. Not surprised Atlanta won the game last night. Atlanta's by far a better basketball team. They've got better and more offensive options than the Knicks do have. You needed to knock down threes, stop them from knocking down threes, and Atlanta struggled from behind the arc last night. They were still able, offensively, they had more solutions, more answers to generate offense than the Knicks did. The Knicks got outclassed in the series. I mean, that's it. So you look at how good they were in the regular season, I think you learned. I mean, you learned about Thibodeau and his staff here in the postseason. They got outcoached by Nate McMillan. You learned about Julius Randle, about as good of a year as he had in the regular season, Eastern Conference All-Star, most improved player in the NBA. You learned about Julius Randle here in the postseason. You learned about others on this team as well here moving forward. Not that you're going to make, and Randle's going to be here. R.J. Barrett is going to be here. You know, you liked what you saw from Obi Toppin at times in this series. Liked what you saw a little bit from Emmanuel Quickley, although, you know, he looked, a little gassed and less effective as the season did go along. But overall, I look at it as I don't want to completely bash the Knicks. You want to say they're a fake tough team? I guess. I mean, you can go down that angle. You want to lambaste them for getting embarrassed here in their first round series? I guess you can go that route. I appreciate what they did this year. They, as a Knicks fan, they provided me a lot of fun and a season that I never anticipated, never expected. So I'm going to look at it the glass is being half full. Disappointing the way it ended. I thought they were going to beat the Hawks. Didn't, as this series did not beat them, obviously. As this series went along, it became abundantly clear the impact of Trae Young and Bogdanovich and, John Collins and DeAndre Hunter and all these guys that are clearly, the Hawks are a better team overall. And the Knicks really were left with a quandary here. They had nowhere to turn. They had nowhere to go. There wasn't a case of, we had people calling up saying, where's the adjustments here from Tom Thibodeau? Well, it shows you the limitations. What this series showed you is the difference between the haves and the have-nots, right? The Knicks have played a certain way during the regular season, max effort team during the regular season, served them well, emphasis on W's. Tom Thibodeau's trying to be a coach of culture change here at Madison Square Garden, and he had to have guys and disciples like Julius Randle and Rose and others be able to step in line and be able to carry out the marching orders, and all of that did happen. However, what became abundantly clear as this series is the limitations that this Knicks team did have, especially in a 7-game series. They got exposed by the Atlanta Hawks, and there was really nowhere for this team to turn because Atlanta, shut down the lanes on Julius Randle. He looked completely uncomfortable. He became turnover Julius once again last night at Madison Square Garden. The crowd couldn't get them going, and the Atlanta Hawks could be able to deal with them defensively and offensively. They were significantly better.
Well, and there were, I don't even know what other moves there were to make. Maybe put Emmanuel quickly into the starting lineup. I don't know. But the only move that Tom Thibodeau was really willing to make was putting Derrick Rose into the starting lineup. And once that didn't work, whether Rose is injured or what have you, that was it. There were no more bullets left in the chamber. That was it. That was the only card that they wanted to play, elected to play, and it just didn't work. And I think when you're talking about, if you believe that it's the haves and the have-nots, and that's what this series came down to, then we're talking about talent. We're talking about the construction of this roster.
Don't you think that's what
and that's why I'm saying what's next. Because I actually don't think beyond Randle, we can get into his contract extension and what's going to be next for him. I actually don't know if there's another lock on this roster, and I'm including RJ Barrett there. And the reason why I say that is because if the Knicks are going to try to really upgrade this team, and I'm not saying that you're going to overnight fix everything, but we've talked before about how Randle really is a number 2. He's not your number 1 guy. And if that opportunity, because it's not going to be the free agent market. All right, the Clippers lost last night. Maybe we can start fantasizing about Kawhi Leonard again, but that's a real long shot. If you are really going to try to get a huge name or a number 1 on this team, then it's probably going to have to come via trade. And you have tons of draft picks to be able to do that. The Knicks have 5 first-round draft picks in the next 3 drafts, tons of assets. But if you're talking about other players as assets, the Knicks don't have a lot of players as assets. You have an injured Mitchell Robinson. You don't have a lot of guys under contract. You think you'd want to give Quickly and Toppin a little bit more time here. And RJ Barrett, let's be honest, I love RJ Barrett, and I appreciate what he did. He said it himself. He's only 20 years old. I think there's a lot of room for him to grow. But you're talking about a guy who was picked 3rd overall in that 2019 draft. Well, the 4th overall pick was DeAndre Hunter, and he looked awesome. He looked great. And so I just don't know if there is an untouchable on this roster because they need upgrades everywhere, basically beyond Randle.
For sure. But I think R.J. Barrett would look a lot different if he had a guard like Trae Young. I mean, the expectations, DeAndre Hunter is 5th, 6th guy on the list when you look at the Atlanta Hawks. He really
very
is.
Good in this series.
No, he played well. He's a good defensive player. Was at Virginia. Can knock down outside shots. 6'8", can do a lot of different things.
Great playoff
debut. Can guard a lot of different positions. So can R.J. Barrett. So, I'm not going to go and continue to – I think R.J. Barrett's here to stay. I do. I think with the amount of time that Tom Thibodeau logged and the amount of minutes that R.J. Barrett logged here in the regular season, in the postseason, he certainly has the trust of his head coach and Tom Thibodeau. Now, you want to say that he's the centerpiece for a star trade? Well, we'll see what star that is.
I'm saying nothing's off the table.
Let's see what that star is and who is out there. I wouldn't say that R.J. Barrett is untouchable, but – I don't think the Knicks right now are waking up here on this Thursday morning saying that R.J. Barrett can't be piece of a winning culture here. He's already showed you here in year 2 with the right head coach that he can. Yeah, I don't know. I think the Knicks can go a lot of different ways in constructing this roster. I think they also have to be patient. I understand everyone wants the here and now and saying, well, you got to go and let's see what you got to go be super aggressive this offseason. I think that's nonsense. I think you got to wait and see exactly if the right opportunity presents itself this offseason. Fine. If the right opportunity doesn't present itself this offseason, then you move forward. No one expected the Knicks to be here with the group that they put together this year, and they ended up being the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. So I would just say, yes, we obviously know the Knicks have to improve. Yes, they have to get better talent. Yes, they have to improve the point guard spot. Yes, they have to get that number 1 star player. All of those things are true. And I get the fact that everyone wants it now. Well, I would just say it's got to be the right player, the right opportunity. The Knicks have made themselves attractive for what they accomplished this year. And the easy reaction coming off this series would be, Knicks are frauds. Look what happened in this series. Knicks got exposed. I mean, there were those that were looking at that saying, you mentioned the fake tough guys, all of that nonsense. I mean, so I look at it. I don't.
They weren't tough in the series. They lost the last 3 games by double figures.
Yeah, they got exposed.
Yeah,
I mean,
they tried to get
exposed.
tough and it didn't work.
No, I get it. I get it because that was the last straw. They had no other choice.
It was desperate. Yeah.
I mean, they were a desperate team at that stage. They don't have the offensive answers in the modern game in the NBA to be able to win a series against the Atlanta Hawks, even when Atlanta's not shooting the ball well from the outside. I mean, you had Bullock, you had Randle turning the basketball over left and right, Bullock shooting air balls in the second half. Derrick Rose looked exhausted as this series did go along. You mentioned about R.J. Barrett's struggles in this series. We were given a lot of accolades in the second half. Talent does reign supreme. It became abundantly clear as this series did go along. A healthy, longer, more offensively gifted Atlanta Hawk team. And I'd be honest to tell you, I think Nate McMillan outcoached Tom Thibodeau in the series as well. As big of a Tom Thibodeau guy as I am, I think Nate McMillan put together a tremendous game plan. That team has been fantastic when whole, when healthy, when they've made the coaching change. The Atlanta Hawks have won a lot of basketball games, and they exposed this Knicks team. I wouldn't say they were frauds. That's too strong. They were a great regular season story that you saw you saw a complete difference between regular season and postseason and the talent on the Atlanta Hawks and the talent on the Knicks.
Okay, so the reason why there has to be a little bit of urgency, though, from the front office, and I understand wanting to be patient and slow playing it, and quite frankly, that's what Leon Rose has done since he's been here in a short amount of time. But the reason why is there are big decisions to be made is I'm not even talking about the Julius Randle. I'm talking about you have a bunch of guys who were placeholders.
Yeah.
You have Noel as a free agent, Burks as a free agent, Bullock as a free agent, Rose, Gibson, Elfrid Payton. Like, your roster is basically up. The only people that you have any kind of financial commitment to, and it's not even a big financial commitment, would be Randle for next year on the partially guaranteed contract. You got your guys on rookie deals. You got RJ on the rookie deal, Quickly, Toppin. I mean, you don't really have anyone who's solidified to this team at all. So, I get what you're saying, and of course you want the right fit, and you don't just want square peg round hole. We know how bad contracts.
We've already learned this group is not good enough.
No, I know, but that's where the makeover has to start, is because you elected for a lot of the guys that they decided to bring in this year, they put them on 1-year deals. Right? They didn't want to make a 2-year commitment to guys like Burks. They didn't want to make a 2-year commitment to guys like Noel. They wanted to do the 1-year commitment, which is fine, but it does create some kind of urgency to start moving this roster in the right direction, because the Thibodeau had such a limited rotation that you're not going to have guys to play if you don't start making decisions and start shaping this roster and who's really going to run alongside Randle.
I get it, but those are more secondary and tertiary guys, right? So
they all matter.
I mean, I can find another Nerlens Noel on a 1-year deal, right? I mean, Alec Burks whether you decide to bring him back, Bullock, whether or not you decide to bring him back, that's fair. I think it's going to come down to the value the Knicks place in the player, and the value the player places on themselves and what they're looking to get. Can they be able to take advantage of what they did this year with the Knicks and get, say, a better deal from another organization in the NBA? I don't know. I mean, so, I think you go up and down the line. I mean, I think Nerlens Noel is replaceable. I mean, I don't think he's a guy that you definitely need to bring back. I think we can gut through. I mean, Elfrid Payton's gone. I mean, there are guys on this team where you say, okay, well, they gave us what we could get from them, and it's time to move on. I get your point there.
Upgrading that roster is going to cost money.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, no doubt. Getting
it's going to cost money, and they've got money to spend under the cap.
I know. This is why I'm excited for what's next for them, because they have this kind of flexibility. But if you want to upgrade the roster, like what Julius Randle did in turning himself from just a guy into a superstar and into an all-star, I hope that Julius has another gear, right? I don't think you can take 71 out of the 72 games that he played in the regular season and be like, oh, fluke. No, come on. This is a season. This is a sample size. I can't even think of another guy who was an all-star in 1 year, made himself into an all-star, and then totally disappeared unless it was for injury. I don't see somebody just falling off, I think this is where Randle is, and hopefully there's even more there. I would at least offer Randle the offer you can make right now, which is, according to Bobby Marks and others front office insiders, former GM of the Nets, you can offer 4 years at $106 million. I would offer that to Randle. Make him turn that down. If you think that he wants to bet on himself, you're now at, I think, a more advantageous, I know this is crazy to say the day after they lose and he plays terribly, but they're a more of an advantageous position to negotiate potentially with Julius Randle right now, because maybe he is looking at that 4 years, $106 million and thinking bird in the hand. And if he continues to play the way that he has, that is not overpaying for Julius Randle. You can't believe that he would have another postseason flameout like he had before. This has got to be experience. So I would still make him the offer, make him turn me down, and then I'm seeing where my next star is going to come from and how am I going to trade for that person and upgrading the rest of the roster. It's a lot to do for the Knicks front office, but it's exciting too.
Oh, no, it's great. It's great. I mean, the Randle point is, and when we talk about, like, limitations offensively, the floor spacing for the Knicks, I mean, there was no fear. I mean, we said at the time when Capella comes out of the and makes the comments, you say, well, that's bulletin board material and everyone's running around like their head's on fire. Well, he said it for a reason. The Hawks did not fear the Knicks at all. The Hawks had no fear whatsoever. They had no fear at the Garden crowd. They had no fear about what the Knicks were going to present. They had no fear about what the Knicks were going to do defensively. They had no fear about what the Knicks were going to do offensively. So as alarming as some of those comments were, and talking confidently as Clint Capella did, look at those words. And it's fair, because you look at what Julius Randle faced here against the Atlanta Hawks. They clogged the lane, weren't able to allow him to go downhill. The floor spacing was terrible. Julius Randle was clearly pressing as the series did go along. And there weren't a lot of offensive options for Randle to be able to lean on to alleviate the stress off of his shoulders. So, yes, I don't think he had a terrible series. Does it define him as a Knick? It does not. I look more at what he did in the regular season, lifting this organization up. But I also think it's eye-opening to what Randle is as a player and the help that he needs, right? He needs that lead guard to help facilitate. So does an Obi Toppin need in that lead guard to help facilitate that offense in the pick and roll into the rim and taking advantage of his athleticism and be able to finish at the rim. The Hawks defensively said, we're going to allow anybody else but Julius Randle to beat us. And the Knicks had no answers whatsoever, and Randle was forced into pushing, and unfortunately it led to, once again, bad decision-making from Julius Randle, bad offensive possessions, bad shots, missed opportunities, and the Atlanta Hawks were able to take advantage of it. So I think you learned a little something if you're the Knicks about what Randle is as a player. I still think he's great. He's a foundation piece. He's not going anywhere. I agree with you. I'd offer him the 4 for 106. As Bobby Marks mentioned, maybe he does decide to gamble on himself and not take that kind of contract, but I think you learned about where this team was as a great regular season story, and when you get to the postseason, completely different beast.